We'd like to begin this podcast by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Here we are. Hi Mel, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm very well. It's
That's
episode 39.
They're
I know we
hitting
keep
the big
talking about
40.
this, but we're about to hit the big 40. I didn't think we'd survive till 40. What do we feel about going into our 40s?
40 was just like where you start to not give a shit.
That's it.
And you're relaxed, you know what you know, and you aren't afraid to know it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, my 20s were a nightmare, absolute nightmare of insecurity and self-doubt. 30s, mostly, I don't know, going off the rails. Hit the 40s, bang.
Yep.
Shit starts changing. Evolution, growth. Maybe the 40th for the podcast will be.
Exactly. Maybe that's where we're going to see it.
Yeah, change, evolution, growth. Evolution, of course, meaning evolving beyond apes that watch beautiful creatures run around so we can bet on them.
Yep. Or this is the thing, they don't even watch them.
They don't watch
They just
them.
wait for the outcome.
Yeah, actually Dad was saying something similar, wasn't he? Remember we interviewed Dad? It was a Evolution in Perspective, I think it's called. And he was saying, even when he did, it was like it was so boring and so quick that it was more about the gambling than the so-called sport.
Yep. Or about having a meal. And as we've said before, because the land is leased or owned by the government, let's keep the venues as they are. Let's keep the staff working, making the food and all the rest of it, and use the land for something else, for family space.
And we could beautify it too, turn it into stuff for the kiddies to do, beautiful restaurants, maybe some funky, what are the kids into now? The
skate parks?
Microbrewery or something? Is that what they're doing?
You mean the 18 plus crowd.
All sorts of stuff you could do.
Exactly.
Anyway, enough of that. Mel, we've got no guests today. Did you know that?
I know. Well,
we have guests. They're in-house.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. We've just figured we've been working so hard, coming up to 40 now, getting these incredible guests in, stunning people we get to talk to. But we take the time to get to know each other, do we, Mel, really?
No.
We're always thinking of...
Our listeners might not get to know us.
Yeah, we know each other from our pyjama sleepovers. So we know each other quite well. But we thought we'd give a chance for the listeners to just listen to us gab on for a bit. I might even invite Gemma in for a chat, shall we?
Absolutely.
It's a bit of a free form, if you will. We're freestyling.
Yep. An open mic night.
Freestyling. Just like that. But before we do that, Mel.
Yes.
What's happening in the world of Free the Hounds, in the world of advocacy and activism and fun stuff?
Well, we had the Vegan Expo last weekend, and as I said before, vegans get a bad rap about being too extreme.
Being judgmental and whatever.
But that is the polar opposite of what they're really like.
They're wonderful, gentle, sensitive people who just care about animals maybe as much as humans, that's all.
Yeah. There's so much going on in the world at the moment that is shitty and unkind and all the rest of it. To be around people that really care is great. Yep.
Yeah, it's lovely.
So we're just sort of waiting, I guess, for the dust to settle after the election and to see how things shake out as to where Free the Hounds' next steps are.
Yep.
We will be presenting our petition again to the new Parliament, and we'll go to the Environment and Public Affairs Committee to look at, and hopefully, being that their colleagues last term recommended inquiry, we would like to think that they also have the fortitude and the insight to go, okay, so if the Estimates Committee are looking at it, then perhaps we should too.
Yeah, and if there's nearly 30,000 people in WA who want you to do something, then...
Yeah. And when you look at Wales, they're going to phase out racing there. They have a population of 3-point-something million, and they got 35,000 signatures.
Oh, wow.
And we have a 2-point-something million population, and we got 27,000 signatures. So if you look at it on the scale of it, and they've called for a ban.
Yep. New Zealand's already made their move, so the ground is shaking. The ground of change is shuddering. Hopefully Australia will get with the vibration.
Well, when it's financially not viable also, why? This is something a lot of the participants say, is that we make income from it and the state gets that income. The state gets the tax from that. Well, If you're going to say that, then why doesn't any tax that nurses or doctors pay or anything that comes from tax from a medical industry, why doesn't that go back into health? All the tax that all the teachers pay and all the parents pay as part of sending their kids to different schools, why doesn't that go into education? It does. This tax system just does not work like that.
No. Your tax goes into a giant big pool, and then the government decides what deserves allocation of funds. And I think our argument would be propping up this industry that can't sustain itself. Racing
WA and the WA Greyhound Racing Association, when you put all the funds together, are making a loss.
So if you're that passionate, you love it so much, get together, get a little NGO, non-government organisation together, organise your races and get some funding to build your stuff and see how you go. You organise your prize money, you organise the costs and the infrastructure and all that stuff with your own money, and knock yourself out. But if you're out of the pocket of my taxpayer-funded money, and then maybe you've at least erased that argument.
Exactly. And we know that the reason that they don't speak about deaths is because the government don't want to be seen as participants of killing animals, because that's what happens. So then the pro-racers could then say, okay, we accept that X amount of dogs are going to die, and we're happy with that.
Which is
because
actually...
that's what they're saying.
That is actually their argument. If you boil down to it, at the end of the day, we know there's going to be broken legs and dead dogs, but we really love racing them, and we really love putting a bet on them.
Exactly. And so have the balls to say that, stand up and say that, and then we could have a really honest debate.
About competing value systems, which is how society operates. The dominant value system tends to make the rules and set the boundaries and all that. Unfortunately, I think the dominant value system in our current society has got some dubious qualities to it. That's a big one, Mel. But let me know what else, because there's something very exciting coming up for me. Bingo. I'm absolutely crazy about bingo. Always have been. I'm willing to be honest about it. I don't care who knows. And I've got a bit of a thing for nanas, frankly. Not a thing, but I'm fond of nanas.
Nanas are
Is there anywhere, Mel, that I could go and indulge in two of my favourite things in life, bingo and nanas?
There
is there?
Do you know there is?
Really? Could you tell me about it?
At our Free the Hounds fundraiser this year.
What the...
I know. On the 17th of May, we have got the most fabulous nana calling bingo for us.
An actual nana or a nana?
As nana as nana can be.
Right, okay. Yep.
Yeah, and this nana loves dogs. Not betting on dogs. We made sure, we checked. We asked, we said, Nana, do you have a little sneaky bet on the dogs on the side?
What did Nana say?
Nana said, absolutely not.
Good on you, Nan.
Never. Yeah, Nana's a pearl.
And what's going to be happening at Nana Bingo?
Well, you're going to play bingo.
Brilliant.
You can have a few drinks.
Love it.
You can buy a raffle ticket and win some fabulous prizes, not just doggy prizes. There's
all sorts
prizes for humans too.
Yeah.
You can bet in our live auction.
Ooh.
Or did I say bet? Bid. You can bid on our live auction.
Ooh.
Or you can bid on the silent auction. There's going to be lots of fun. There'll be some tits and bums, which is heads or tails.
Yep.
And and it's just Nana she's a bit into disco.
Yep.
She's a bit into some cheeky...
Risque Nana humour?
Not so much risque, but a bit cheeky. She's lived a bit of a wild life as Nana.
No, we'll get along.
She's not afraid to tell us about it,
we'll
as Nanas often aren't.
Yep.
And you know what? You are just with a bunch of nice people.
Surrounded by beautiful, kind, sensitive, intelligent people. And me. I'll be there as well. Definitely. And what's the date again, Mel?
The 17th of May. Doors open at 6 o'clock and bingo starts at 7 sharp.
And these things tend to sell pretty well, don't they, Mel?
Yeah.
It's only barely a month away.
Yep.
So get your tickets in. And also you can dress up. There's dress-ups.
Yes, there is prizes for the best dressed Nana and Pop. Let's not forget Pop. And you can get your tickets on Humanitix. You don't buy tables at this. We're doing it...
Mix and match?
Yeah, it's more like... I envisage it as an Oktoberfest kind of feel. They're big tables. You and your mates sit together and, you chat to the people next to you. Because when you're playing bingo, there's not a lot of time to chat. I'm
going to bring 20 of those little coloured stampers and my little lucky trolls and,
I know, people get really into it.
Yeah. Oh, it's a bit cultish. It's like greyhound ownership. Bingo can be very cultish.
Yes.
Also, Mel, we know that Easter's coming up. It's only a week away, and I know that for some of our Christian listeners, it's a period of leading up to Lent, isn't it? Lent or something leads up to thing.
Yep.
And what do you do for Lent again?
Lent, you're supposed to, on a Friday, you don't eat any red meat, and you generally give up something to show your commitment to the faith. And,
right. What could I give up? I think I've given up most of the things I wanted to give up in life. I could give up blasphemy. I'm a bit blasphemous sometimes. I'm not really. Anyway, Mel, I know something happened about 10 days ago.
Yeah.
And it's a big birthday. Our producer, Jem, she had a very big birthday. I'm not going to tell you how big it was. It could be her 30th. It could be her 20th. It could be probably not her 20th. I'd be in big trouble.
Yeah, no, don't.
Yeah. But it was an ith.
An ith.
A something ith.
Very important ith.
Yeah. She's an April 1st baby. It's easy come birthday time. It's so brilliant because I'll say a week or two leading up to it, I'll just be saying, ooh, you should see what I got you. Ooh, I got you something special. And then I just bring an empty box and go, April Fools.
Yeah. You are such a jerk.
Yeah, every year. It works a treat. Happy birthday, Jem. We're going to talk to Jem soon. Yeah, we'll get her in the studio. She's in the
she's always in here.
She's in the mixing booth at the moment. Well, we'll get her out of the mixing booth and we'll get her in here. And frankly, it's a plethora of celebrations of incredible human beings.
Lots of Aries babies.
Aries babies, yeah, because our very own Maleficent, I believe it's your birthday tomorrow.
It is.
Yeah. What are you going to do? You celebrate in a big way? Do you allow yourself any time to celebrate yourself, or are you just going to go out and, I don't know, build a greyhound shelter somewhere tomorrow?
No, I'm actually going for drinks with you and Gemma.
You already knew the answer. I was just tricking you.
Pinky promised.
You did.
To go out with you guys.
Most of you are aware that Mel, I think, gets about 4 hours sleep a week. I mean, you've got kids, you've got work, you're trying to end greyhound racing, and you've got a slew of wonderful volunteers and helpers. But I don't think I've met someone who dedicates so little time to your own indulgences and needs. So we had to pin her down with a pinky swear to say, Mel, you're going out, you're having some drinks, you're going to relax.
Yep.
And it's happening.
So I'm going to get hammered.
Day wasted.
No, not hammered, day wasted yet. We're day drinking, which is
drinking tomorrow.
So Nana can be poured into bed like about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
But that was the only caveat. Mel said, I can't be out beyond 7 p.m. That's how she sounds.
Because otherwise I feel like I waste the next day.
Exactly,
I don't recover like I used to.
Always thinking of the future.
I've got shit I've got to do.
So I'm looking forward to that. So everyone, if you're listening, Mel's birthday tomorrow, send her a message. If you're listening to this on Friday, which is when it's released, Friday the 11th, send Mel big birthday wishes and hugs. I'm going to give her a big birthday sloppy kiss tomorrow. She sounds really happy about that.
I'll let you shake my hand.
All right. And maybe buy you a bevy.
Yes.
What's your bevy of choice, Mel?
Oh, it's got to be on the day. Because if it's warmer, a nice beer.
Yep.
From a bottle.
If a bit cooler, a nice glass of Pinot Noir or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Or a Shardy.
Shardy. Looking forward to it. I think that's about it for the special stuff going on. What do you think?
Yep.
Should we get into, let's get Jem in the room and we'll have a little chitty McChat face.
A chatty McChat face.
Chatty McChat face. All right. We'll see you soon. So Mel, welcome to our guest, which is us. Hi, us.
Hi.
Gemma's here. Hi, Jem.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
You're going to have a little chat to us today.
A little bit nervous.
Nervous?
Yeah.
All right, we're very gentle creatures, aren't we, Mel? Yeah. It's a bit of a freestyle. Waka, 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 freestyling. See, the kids will love that. The kids will be all over that.
I don't know.
That's called beatboxing. Did you know that? Waka, waka, waka. No?
It sounds like Fozzie Bear. Yeah.
Waka, waka, waka. Just thought we'd have a chat because this podcast tackles everything you could imagine. We've tackled the financial issue. We've tackled the greyhound welfare issue, the adoption issue, the rehoming issue. We've had a physiotherapist on. We've had vets on. We've had professors on. We've had politicians on. There's a plethora of information there. But what's missing, Mel, frankly, is us, really.
That's right, except for episode 1.
Did we talk about us much in episode 1? I think we talked about the podcast mainly.
I can't remember.
No.
Yes, nearly.
Has anyone listened to it lately?
When we're a little baby, only one. So today, we're just going to have a little chat to each other because there's lots to know about us, frankly. We're fascinating people. Well, there's 2 fascinating people in the room, and then I'm going to talk to you. You can ask me stuff too if you like. I'm an open book.
I think everybody knows.
Yeah, he's a bit
About
open.
you.
They say you're a bit open, mate. But particularly, Mel, one of my thoughts was to let everyone know your story a little bit, Mel, because I've come to know and love you and spend lots of evenings together on the couch.
I've never even been to my home.
But yeah, just a bit of a story about obviously president of Free the Hounds. But where did your journey begin, Mel? Where did you start out? Did you always have a passion for animals? Did you always have a passion for greyhounds?
Yeah, I've always been a dog lover, definitely, and cats. I grew up with them in my family.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any special kind of connection with animal rights or activism or advocacy or anything like that. I went and was actually living overseas in Southeast Asia for probably 8 years.
Wow.
When my kids were born. And
what were you doing there, Mel? Can I ask which country? Because I love Southeast Asia, my favourite place in the world.
Thailand and Malaysia.
Oh, wow. I lived in Malaysia for a couple of years.
Yeah?
I was in Penang.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, how about that? See, we're
There you
discovering
go.
things already, Jem.
There you go. I was in Kuala Lumpur. I was the trailing spouse at the time.
Yep.
Yes. My twins were born over there.
Yep.
Hadn't had pets because it's hard to get pets over there to then bring them back into the country. So when we got home, my daughter saw a greyhound on television
Yeah.
looking to be rehomed.
Oh,
It was a segment on GAP,
yeah.
WA, and Adoption Month. We already had 2 cats because we'd rescued 2 cats when we got home. They were the first pets introduced into the house.
Oh, and both rescues, so you were a rescuer from day one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, when I returned, definitely, because I'd seen a lot of mistreatment and...
Yeah, that's the downside over there. They're not great with their animals. Yeah.
No, because you got the very strong Buddhist faith in Thailand and then in KL. They just, they're impoverished countries in a lot of ways, so there's not a lot that they can do to help animals in some respects. Anyway, I remember telling people that, oh, no, we don't have greyhound racing in Australia. And then my daughter wanted to get a greyhound and I thought, okay, let's do the right thing. We needed to get one that was cat-friendly, reached out to GAP, never heard back from them, reached out to Greyhound Adoptions WA.
Gower, yep.
Yeah, we heard back from them and they had a cat-friendly dog.
Yep.
And we met her, or we were asked to go to a stall that they were at.
Yep, meet and greet kind of thing.
Yep. And I saw this ragged, skinny, dirty-looking greyhound walk towards me, and she was obviously very fearful, but it was a very noisy fair. My kids were even not really comfortable in it. And it was a hot day, and so I saw this dog, and I thought, oh, my God. Anyway, we spent about probably an hour there with her. And by the end of the hour, we'd found out that she didn't actually have a foster home to go to.
Right.
So
you felt obligated to give her a little place.
I was asked.
Yeah.
It was like, do you think you could take her and foster her at least, give her a few nights try? And I'm like, okay. Not tonight probably because I need to go home and prepare the house, but how about tomorrow you could bring her over?
Yeah.
So on the way home, we detoured to the pet store and got some stuff for her. And I get home and then there's a phone call from...
Gower.
Yeah, and she said, oh, you wouldn't be able to take her this afternoon, would you? Next thing I know, about an hour later, Gina, my first greyhound, arrived. After that, Bronte, my daughter, she was horrified. She was just so upset the coming weeks later about what this dog had gone through. And we looked up her race name and we realised how things had happened, and it really piqued my interest into why it was still occurring in the state and the country. And then I started, because my background was finance, and I looked at it from a financial perspective and then realising the way that it sat within government. And anyway, it transpired several months later, Gower needed a treasurer. So that's when I started seeing the amount of money that the community was donating that then was going in to help these dogs, that the trainers that were handing them over simply just were not doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like, okay, so now I can see why Racing and Wagering WA and the WA Greyhound Racing Association are so in trouble.
Yeah.
If they're paying for half of these dogs and all the other things that go with it, and the community is still paying all this money out,
picking up the slack.
Why is it even going on?
And again, Mel, just to keep our listeners, if you want to do a deep dive into that financial aspect, back in episode 14, Sebastian Broadhurst came on the show. And not only, as you say, Mel, is it financially kept on crutches by our taxpayer money, even the numbers that the so-called industry gives need a really good, careful looking at because they're somewhat dodgy. if you look at them. And Sebastian Broadhurst really got underneath those figures. Yeah, check that out too.
Yeah.
So that's when it all took off for you, basically.
Yeah. And my daughter said, I promised her, I said I will do something. And when you promise your child,
geez,
it's very hard to...
you really backed that promise up, Mel.
I just think you need to show, I think, your kids that you're prepared to stand by what you believe.
Yeah.
Or what you can see is wrong. And some things when you see them, you can't unsee them.
Yeah.
And the way that some of these dogs are treated.
Yeah.
And the flippancy with which trainers or participants and even the vets involved can just discard these dogs. And I know they would have to cut those feelings off because it does hurt them, but then ultimately that's not healthy for anybody.
Yeah.
It's not healthy for the dog, but then when you go deeper, it's not healthy for those involved. It's not healthy for those working there.
Yep.
And at the basis of it all is for gambling funds. It's absolutely not healthy for our community.
Yeah. And it's led to you sitting opposite me as president of Free the Hounds, and me having the honour and privilege of talking to someone who's moved beyond just giving a shit and checking out a few dodgy stats to leading the peak body advocacy group for greyhounds in WA.
We've had fantastic presidents previously. I think burnout is a real thing when you come into this field. Perhaps I'm just more stubborn than the previous ones.
I think, Mel, some people are born into leadership, some people pursue leadership, and some have leadership thrust upon them. So you've been thrusted with leadership, Mel.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I promised my daughter. So that's where
can we give a shout out to your daughter?
Bronte.
See what you've done, Bronte. Look, what an amazing, inspirational mum you have. You should let her know that she's awesome when you get home, Bronte, please. And Jem.
Yes.
You came late as well, didn't you, to the advocacy field? I mean, time I've known you, you've always been quite active for social justice and social causes. But in terms of greyhounds, I don't think you knew bugger all either, did you?
No, I hadn't even really met a greyhound until I went over to my friend Loz. Shout out to Loz.
Hi, Loz.
Hi, Loz. And unbeknownst to me, she was dog sitting at the time, and I went up to her front door and knocked on the door, and I could see this dog on the sofa just looking at me and wagging its tail.
Yeah.
And I was flabbergasted at the fact I've grown up with dogs, always been a dog lover, but I had never met a dog that didn't run up to the door or bark or do something, have some other reaction. Yeah. And this dog was just sitting on the couch. I could hear his tail.
Smoking jacket on and pipe in his hand.
And I could hear his tail slapping on the couch. And I fell in love immediately. And yeah, his nature really struck me as well. And it's funny you said that, because I said to Loz, it's like he's an old gentleman. He's just so polite and not in my face, but absolutely happy to sit down and have a chat.
Welcome
and
to my abode.
And he was a beautiful boy. And then
Did you get lots of pats?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've got photographs of me meeting this first greyhound.
Do you remember his name? Do you remember what his name was?
His name was Cody.
Okay.
And he was a beautiful blue boy.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. And
right. So was it a bit of like love at first sight kind of thing in terms of...
Yeah, and that's all I knew about greyhounds. And then when we bought an apartment and I wanted to get a dog, I just Googled best dogs for apartments. And when greyhounds came up, and because I wanted a rescue, greyhounds came up, and I realised that they were rescued from the racing industry. Yeah. That was it. I was like, nah, we're going to meet some greyhounds. We're going to do this foster to adopt thing.
And that's a really good point to really hammer down to, because we see them on giant tracks running around, and I think there's this false equivalency, or this sort of idea gets into your head that, and they're bigger dogs, that they need lots of space and they need lots of yards to run in, and it's just the opposite, isn't it?
Well, our small 2-bedroom apartment is a palace for them. We've now got 2 greyhounds, and we actually bought a doggy cam to see what they get up to, and all they do is a waste of money, because all they do is sleep and stretch and go to another bed all day long while we're at work.
I just use it to spy on Jem when she's home now. That's basically it. She's more active than either of them. Bunny and Bo. Hi, Bunny and Bo. Hello. They listen, don't they, to the podcast with us?
And then I guess I found Free the Hounds just from doing some research. It was quite a while. I think I just fell into absolutely falling in love with this dog and just got on a couple of Facebook groups and just was still quite ignorant to the fact that racing still existed until I started getting things in my feed about these dogs being injured and looking at Bunny, and not long after we adopted Bo, and I just couldn't not do anything, and I joined a volunteer sign up with Free the Hounds and was very impressed by all the legwork that had already been done, all these statistics, all these facts that had actually come from the industry. So it wasn't like what a lot of the pro racers comment on, our lies and deceit. It was facts coming straight from the stewards' reports from the tracks of Cannington and Mandurah and Northam, and just appalled by the amount of injury. Then becoming appalled by the way that they had dodgied up their figures saying how safe it was, when really so many of these dogs were being injured and euthanised. And
29 injuries already this year. Six
so
deaths. Yeah,
and I'm sure by the time this episode airs, there's going to be more. It's just inevitable. There's like at least one injury a week at the moment in Perth alone, just between Mandurah and Cannington tracks. Northam's not even operating, and we've got more than one a week. Yeah. And that doesn't even include the dogs that are injured at trials
or the training stuff, the stuff that happens there,
and at training,
and the stuff that doesn't get reported as well. We know that there's stuff that happens under the radar, don't we?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you though, when you joined Free the Hounds, right? Did you have the same experience I had when you met Mel? Was it love at first sight?
I'm pretty sure everybody is absolutely blown away by Mel when they first meet her. Straight away, she can talk to anyone about any part of greyhound.
She's got encyclopedic
racing,
knowledge about the hounds, hasn't she?
Yeah, that's pretty much. She's like Greyhound Google.
Yeah, Greyhound Google. And so you joined up and you signed up with the Facebook, blah, 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 blah. But I know that you fairly quickly moved into a much deeper relationship with Free the Hounds, and I think you joined the committee at some point.
That's correct, yeah. I went to the AGM and I had a whole lot of eyes looking at me when they were like, who wants to join the committee? And I'm in a good situation where I have some time up my sleeve, and so I decided there and then that, this is where I'm going to focus my energy and my time. And as soon as I got involved with the committee and learned how, everybody puts in so much time and effort. Everybody's got busy lives, jobs, children, pets of their own. And I think it mobilised me thinking that this sport, this so-called sport that hurts animals, where people are earning tax-free dollars and they're relying on government-controlled spending to prop it up, and then the aftermath is picked up and cleaned up by hardworking volunteers, paid for by those volunteers, as well as fundraising, which takes a lot of time and effort to collect money from the community. Why, if the government is making so much money from the gambling revenue, why is all the mess cleaned up by volunteers putting their time, money, and the community at large through fundraising and donations? Yeah. Why are we doing this? And instead of focusing on just helping rehome these greyhounds, I decided, no, I've got to do something to stop this, to at least get the government to have a good look at it, because it's a crazy upside down world as far as that's concerned.
Because for those who don't know, and I didn't know anything, I'm so grateful for what I've learnt through my association with Gemma. It's an association of deep association, really, isn't it, Gem, that we have, the two of us, over the last period of time.
You're married, for any listeners that don't realise.
And especially Mel has taught me so much about this. But they used to just kill them. Let's just put it bluntly. Back in the day, if they didn't perform. And when did it come in, Mel, that they said you can't just kill them anymore if they're not making you any cash?
Well, It's under the rules of racing because you have local rules, which is by state, and then you have the national rules, which is brought out by Greyhounds Australasia. So WA, give them credit where it's due, you have some of the toughest rules in the country.
And when did the rule come in WA that they had to rehome?
It was early 2019. I can't quote exactly when, but I know that prior to that there was a lot more movement just prior to the 2015-2016 inquiry when all that was going on over there. Yeah. So you'd have to say 2010 sort of was when things started, I would imagine, to change. Yeah.
And, but I think what I wanted to say, though, is now that we have to rehome them, that we're making them to do that, I understand what you're saying, Jim, about the community picks up the cost and the slack, and that sucks. What doesn't suck for me is that so many more people now, like me, are starting to view these dogs in different ways, actually 100%. Starting to view them as beautiful creatures, as companions. Yeah. So my hope is that'll be the momentum that'll get people that aren't activists involved. And that's a part of what I wanted this chat to be about. If you're thinking of adopting or you have one, you can be more than just a wonderful daddy or mummy. Exactly. You can do something. As Gemma said, turn the tap off at the source, because we can raise all the funds we want, and let's do that and support the rehoming and be advocates. But if they keep pumping these dogs out, it's just the burden is on the tail end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if we can turn it off at the source, maybe we'll have a better chance.
Yeah. No, you're right. So many more people are viewing greyhounds as gentle, loving companion pets, and I think that's going to be the downfall of the greyhound racing industry ultimately.
It's what turned me. I didn't even class them as really as dogs as such, as they were these things that ran around a track. And now...
Well, even in the current Animal Welfare Act in WA, they are still classed as animals for entertainment.
So they haven't got the same protections as...
No. Well, they do, because they're under the rules of racing. Yeah. And that's where that loophole is for pro racers to be able to say, but they come under the rules of racing. But if you read the rules of racing and wagering get the final say on absolutely everything. Right. All roads lead back to them being able to make the final decision.
That is the definition of the rooster watching the hen house,
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
And that's one of the biggest parts of the issue, is that they're in charge of the gambling, the welfare and the integrity. You should never have. You're talking about this $1 billion industry, in inverted commas, for all of the gambling side of it, Racing WA, but there's no oversight. Absolutely none.
That's Gemma putting me in charge of the house expenditure account, frankly. You just wouldn't do it, would you, Gem?
Not at all.
You've got to have oversight and responsibility and accountability, and I need constant supervision. So this is what this mob need too, I think. What do you reckon?
I don't know about the analogy. It needs to be a little bit more dramatic than that.
I do want to shout out to people again who maybe are just new to this. There's so much you can actually do. Go back not very far, and I was ignorant, had no idea. And in a short space of time, thanks to being educated by some incredibly intelligent women in my life, I feel like I can speak and be an advocate on behalf of the hounds and support the end of this industry. So if you're anyone like that and you're just thinking, shit, this is the first time I've heard this kind of stuff, get in touch with Free the Hounds, freethehounds.com.au. You can email us. We've got an email. It's a podcast at freethehounds.com.au. There's so much you can do, isn't there, Mel? And you don't have to be the warriors that you two are, but you could just be a volley and help out at a stall,
Yeah, and even for us right now, anything that we need or that greyhounds need changed has to be done from a parliamentary perspective. Legislation has to change because it's all within government. Yeah. So the most important thing that any of our followers or people that want to support us want to do is talk to their local MP, email them, ring them up. They cannot tell you that they will not listen to what is bothering you. Yeah. So if you want to make a change for greyhounds, that's where it starts, is by talking. And if you need information or help with sending those emails, reach out to us and we can help you. All the stats are on our website, or follow us on Facebook or Instagram or Threads or...
Yeah, listen to the podcast. There's near on 40 episodes. Georgie Purcell, episode 2, Animal Justice Party Member of Parliament over in Victoria.
Yep.
She had a lot to say about what you can do.
Yep. It's really important because that is where change is going to be made. And we've got Labor. They've got more seats in the lower house even than they did the last time. That is going to be the only way that we will change it, is through legislation. And
you can meet with them. I know you and Jem have actually had multiple sit-down, face-to-face meetings with your local member.
Yeah. You don't even have to go with necessarily a whole bunch of information if you don't want to. You just need to go and tell them how you feel about it. Take your greyhound in to meet them and say, would you allow your dog to be put on the track to be possibly injured or killed?
That's a good one. That's one I always ask people when they're about, but I like bitting on the dogs. Oh, do you have a dog? Oh, yeah, I've got a staffy, or I've got I'll tell you what, mate, you're going to put your staffy, line it up with 9, 10, whatever it is, other dogs, when I can tell you statistically, publicly available stats, if you race that dog over its career, 1 in every 3 greyhounds will suffer an injury or die. Over 1 in 3, actually. So would you risk your little companion doing that?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
No.
I really don't get it.
Even just telling them that so far this year there's been 2 to 3 broken legs a week.
Yeah.
And in the first 10 weeks of racing, there were 6 of them were killed because of catastrophic injury.
Yeah.
And those sorts of statistics are really all they need to know.
They should be. I think it comes back to that perception thing, though, again, Jem. There's a shift in perception that needs to happen where we do start to see these gorgeous creatures as pets, companions, and I think if we can get there, then when we show them these stats, it's going to land a lot harder. Do you think?
Yeah. They need to be seen as just like every other dog breed.
Yeah, bring them into the fold. And in fact, the greatest dog breed, frankly. And I'm not one for superiority or anything. I'm an egalitarian, but greyhounds are superior to every other breed.
Well, I was going to say, talking about other breeds, there's so many layers to this onion, and I think one of the biggest ones at the moment is the rehoming crisis that's here in WA. And Mel and I did reach out to some of the rescue centres, and only a couple got back to us in time for this recording, but the Dogs Refuge at the moment has over 280 dogs that are needing homes.
Jeez.
Desperate for Love Dog Pound, also based here in Perth, has over 50 dogs at the moment needing homes.
Well, not only is there the issue with the greyhounds and the rehoming, but because they're producing all these dogs that need rehoming, they're squeezing the other.
Absolutely. So
they're making it worse for all the other breeds.
Absolutely. Yep. So every home that's got a greyhound, poor old Fido misses out on a home and are sitting, like Jem's saying, and pro racers say, but look how many dogs the RSPCA kill. That's because greyhounds are taking the space of some of those dogs that were euthanized.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Those dogs wouldn't be getting euthanized if you weren't putting greyhounds in homes that you don't want, that you raised money off, that put food on your table, or that did things because that's what you wanted to do with that dog. So don't go blaming the RSPCA. Their hands are tied. What do you expect them to do? Same as the pro racers bitch and moan because GAP can't take more dogs, or the government's not giving them enough money to rehome these dogs, or the public have to pay for the dogs on the East Coast to be flown to the United States to find homes.
Yeah.
And, but look at how many dogs the RSPCA kills.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you stopped adding more dogs to the fold, then the RSPCA wouldn't have to.
And that's the difference, isn't it? With all the other breeds, there's unfortunate circumstances 100%. Which lead to them needing rehoming. With greyhounds, there's a rehoming producing factory that keeps pumping out.
Purposely bred.
It makes no sense.
And in WA, those trainers are given breeding bonuses if the dog's fast enough.
That's unreal. That just flips my lid, that one. They're actually, not only are we not trying to limit this, we're paying them.
Yep.
To breed some more.
And the owners don't even have to live in WA.
Jesus
You could
Christ.
be an owner living on the East Coast and be getting
WA taxpayer money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you happen to own a dog that's was born here, raced here, and winning here.
If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, some of this stuff might be blowing your brain apart.
We're getting all hepped up from it.
I'm getting hepped up. I'm hepped up.
You can see the smoke coming out of our headphones.
But if this is hepping you up, if you're listening, go and do it. Listen to some other stuff. Again, listen to the podcast. Contact Free the Hounds. Go talk to your minister. Like, get involved. Get activated. Because this, we firmly believe this is an anachronistic sport, and its time is coming to an end. It's coming to an end all around the world. There's different countries, New Zealand, Wales, Scotland, Singapore. America only has 3 tracks left in the entire nation. Is that right, Mel?
I think so.
There's bugger all.
There's only one state. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we can
America.
fact check that. But let's talk about a country of 330 odd million. They've just about wrapped it up. It's time for us to wrap it up. It's time for us to wrap this so-called sport, knock it on the head. Terrible analogy. But do it in a way that transitions and phases out and looks after the people who need looking after. Let's not make it tough for you. But we've got to finish this thing up, don't we?
Absolutely.
And we've got to finish this episode up.
Yeah.
We've
nice chatting to you guys.
Nice chatting to you.
Thanks for getting me wound up.
We need a break.
I think it's because I'm sitting here thinking about my beautiful Gigi at home and my Anna over the bridge, and I think of them and their eyes and the way they look at me with love, and you think, I'm here to protect you. How can I do that? And this is how.
Yeah. Go and get one. If you're listening and you're thinking about it, you're on the fence, seriously, foster a hound. I think it'll be a foster fail. But even if it isn't, you get to experience these creatures, and then you might get a sense of why we're getting hepped up. Yep. Anyway, don't forget the latest podcast sponsor, Henry Houndwear. henryhoundwear.com.au, a greyhound designer label. Thanks for listening. Jem, thanks for being here.
Thank you for allowing me to get out of the mixing studio.
Yeah, no, I think
the box.
I think
out of my box.
You did a great job, and you speak well. You're quite an attractive woman. Do you want to get
flirting with me?
I just wondering what you're doing after the podcast. You doing anything?
La 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 la.
Mel, as always,
Adios.
lovely. See you next time, eh?
Ciao ciao.